Hey, Mario and the gang, you probably know my name, and so we start.
What up, guys? Solarflare 3000 here, and welcome to another reaction. It's been a long time since I've actually done one, because I had my new job and I've been so busy, but whatever. But today we're gonna be reacting to how good was Typhlosion actually? History of Typhlosion in competitive Pokemon by FalseSwipeGaming. If you don't know FalseSwipeGaming, he's a YouTuber that does a huge that makes videos on a huge videos on the analysis of every Pokemon in each generation in their competitive formats. He analyzes every Pokemon and just how good they were in each gen, depending on from where they started to the most current generation in which they're available in. But yeah, you should go check them out. Today we're reacting. So in this case, we're reacting to Typhlosion. And I'm doing Typhlosion because he's one of my favorite Pokemon. And two, I want to see how my boy fared in the competitive scene. But yeah, brings me back to when I first had Heart Gold and Soul Silver. No, Pokemon Heart Gold. And I think it was pre-owned because I remember going on it and there was a level 100, level 50 or level 100 Typhlosion in there. And I thought it was the coolest looking Pokemon. It was awesome. Yeah, enough of that. Without further ado, let's do this.
What's up, guys? I'm not even gonna bother with one of those sections where I pretend to make you guess who the Pokemon is, cause you already know. Last week was Feraligatr, so this week is Typhlosion, the Johto fire starter. And yes, this means Typhlosion actually won the comment votes this time. No prizes for guessing what pops up next time. Although knowing you guys, maybe we just end up with Quagsire or something. Typhlosion is one of those Pokemon that you look at and go, I have no idea what the thought process was here. I guess it started with Cyndaquil, and the fact that fire substituting for Echidna Spines was cool, but Typhlosion is like a badger on fire. To be honest, it has some of that middle stages cooler syndrome that I think a lot of the starters get. What with Quilava being so slick. But hey, that's just my opinion though. And Typhlosion's certainly not uncool either. And you know by now that my writer loves talking about Pokemon adventures. And that of course includes Gold's Typhlosion, named Explotaro, or Expo in the US. And this version of Gold's Typhlosion is maybe even cooler because he's a sweet boy despite appearances. I guess without his flames, he looks sort of cuddly. But regardless of Pokemon Adventures, I think a lot of people first met Typhlosion outside of the games in the Legend of Thunder special, where this guy who totally isn't Gold, named Jimmy, for some reason, has a Typhlosion who, along with trying to battle a literal embodiment of Thunder, also had a pretty decent smile. But maybe that just bellies the power contained in the fur collar of flames. So let's find out how good was Typhlosion actually.
Alright, let's see.
And in this video, we'll be covering these competitive formats. Typhlosion supposedly has a good amount of speed behind all that bulk, according to Bulbapedia, and that comes through its stats. I don't know if 100 speed is what you would expect looking at Typhlosion, but hey, I'm not complaining. His special attack is even better at 109, and then he just sort of has middling stats all around. In fact, stats that should look familiar. I'll give you a minute to figure it out. Now keep in mind that when Typhlosion debuted in Gen 2, there was no global cap on EVs, meaning you can max out all of a Pokemon's stats, so there really wasn't any reason not to run a Pokemon with good mix sets as a mixed Pokemon, if the coverage trade-off made up for the power loss of using an inferior stat. So do you know where those stats are from yet? I'll tell you, they're the exact same base stats as Charizard. While Typhlosion didn't have the belly drum that pushed Charizard towards the physical side, 84 attack was certainly enough to use Earthquake well. So Typhlosion's main set was sort of mixed, consisting of the prerequisite Fire Blast to take advantage of his special attack and Thunder Punch to hit water and flying types. To be honest, that summarized most of Typhlosion's viable attacking moves. Its move pool wasn't any great shakes, and unless you wanted to go for the Gambler's Dynamic Punch, or risk the recoil from Double Edge, that last move slot was limited to a choice of Hidden Power or Rest.
Now I've used Typhlosion in a Pokemon Showdown before in in Gen 2 OU, and he honestly pretty decent. He's not good, but he's pretty decent if you know how to use him. But yeah, pretty much.
Typhlosion also had the requisite bulk that made for a usable Rest Talk set, with the main motive behind it being everyone else is doing it, so why can't we? Typhlosion certainly wasn't a bad Pokemon, but the meta wasn't exactly kind to most special attackers. GSC Overused is an incredibly small set of Pokemon because so much of the game revolved around Snorlax, what beat it, and what worked with it. And speaking of Snorlax, it was probably the best Typhlosion counter, as any variant lacking Dynamic Punch was fully walled and set up fodder. Grounded rock types like Rhydon, Golem, and Dugtrio could easily dispatch Typhlosion. Typhlosion. Although the slower rock types had to be careful of super effective hidden powers and correct predictions, as did Dragonite and Quagsire, who feared nothing but ice or grass. Typhlosion's moveset stretched just wide enough to be a big threat to switch into, but not strong enough to threat the top threats of overuse. It landed in borderline, but let's get this clear. The borderline's list is huge with 25 Pokemon. In fact, that's one more than it is currently in overuse. So, not too shabby, Typhlosion. So listen, it's inevitable from here on out that we compare Typhlosion and Charizard. The same stats, ability, and almost the same typing mean move pool is all that really differentiates the two. We already know that Typhlosion doesn't have Belly Jump, so what does it have? To be honest, pretty much only one thing: Thunder Punch. Typhlosion's main set aped Charizard's Get Into Pinch HP gimmick and used Substitute to activate Blaze and Pataya Berry, which paired with Sunny Day made for some pretty explosive flamethrowers. Now here's the thing, Thunder Punch let Typhlosion hit water types and Flash Fire Pokemon, which otherwise walled it, but then it was walled completely by Swampert and Quagsire. Switching to Hidden Power Grass patched that up, but then you were literally running a set Charizard could, with the only trade-off being neutral damage against electric types in exchange for a ground weakness. And at that point, using Charizard was likely a better idea, if only because Typhlosion would almost always be running this special sweeper set. The unpredictability of Charizard and the need to be prepared for its belly drum made it a stronger choice then. So the special attacker Typhlosion was only really better at hitting Gyarados or something like Houndoom. In addition to Swampert and Gyarados, bulky water types that could take a Thunder Punch or Hidden Power Grass like Milotic, Suicune, and Vaporeon did well against Typhlosion. Although a Sunny Day was up, their surfs became kiddie pool size. Dragon types like Salamence and Flygon also beat Typhlosion straight up unless it had HP Ice, which would mean water types would always beat it. Finally, Snorlax and Blissey made a return from Gen 2, although Dynamic Punch's replacement Focus Punch made Typhlosion a bit more threatening. In the end, it was Typhlosion's utter inferiority to Charizard that ruined its day. Now maybe there's a world where Charizard doesn't exist and Pokemon is a lot less popular and makes a lot less money, but at least Typhlosion makes overuse. But who knows? For Gen 3, it stayed in borderline. Gen 4 gave Typhlosion a suite of new options to use that expanded it from a predictable one-note attacker into a varied threat who had a whole symphony of moves to throw at you. Solar Beam bolstered the Sunny Day set from a gimmick needed for setup to something truly terrifying, while Focus Blast gave him ways to deal with the rock and normal types that could weather his assault earlier. The biggest move addition though was Eruption, a horrifically powerful move when Typhlosion was at full health. But it wasn't actually just moves that helped Typhlosion out. More than anything, it was the items. Typhlosion had been limited to one role previously, but the triple threat of Life Orb, Choice Specs, and Choice Scarf meant it could serve as a Saddle Sweeper, Hit and Run powerhouse, or a Revenge Killer. All of these sets featured some combination of Focus Blast, Eruption, a secondary fire move, and Hidden Power for coverage. Although the Sunny Day set usually opted to just stick with Fire Blast over Eruption to make room for Solar Beam, after Sunny Day, Fire Blast was pretty strong enough already. I sort of have to apologize for stringing you on though. That all sounds great on paper, but the sad reality is that Gen 4 brought more bad things for Typhlosion than good. Well, one bad thing specifically. That's right, Stealth Rocks were the bane of Typhlosion's existence, stripping 25% of his health each time he switched in. A penalty made to sting so much more because it would lower Eruption's power. As such, there was literally only one fire type in Gen 4 overuse specifically. Another fire starter that Typhlosion had to match up to, but that had a fighting type to alleviate a potential death by stoning. Typhlosion made its attempts in underuse, but stiff competition from Moltres and a complete wall by Chansey made it slim pickings there as well for Typhlosion, who failed to never use, where it still had to compete with Charizard. Now, Weather Wars might make you think, oh, Typhlosion's used on a Sun team all the time, this will be great. Unfortunately, Sun was, mildly speaking, not the best weather in overuse, and frequently revolved around fire types that got past the bad defensive typing and Stealth Rock's weakness that such a team might inherently have. I mean, they could also just use grass types that had chlorophyll, but they don't have the fire stat to go with the boost for the fire moves in Sun. Or they just double down on taking those lumps as they came, in which case, use Charizard. Typhlosion stayed pretty much exactly the same in Black and White. Its Dream Whirl ability Flash Fire wasn't even released before the generation ended, and so it kept doing what it did the gen before, spamming Eruption and abusing choice items, but this time in rarely used. There's really not much to say, except, dang. Look at that animated sprite. Now it makes sense. Typhlosion isn't just on fire, it's constantly exploding. Now that's badass. Unlike its tier placement. And once it did get Flash Fire, it honestly didn't make a huge difference. Listen, there's not exactly a shortage of fast, strong fire types, even in the lower tiers. In fact, Typhlosion's stiffest competition has been its other fire type starters. By this point, Charizard had attained the incredible power with its Mega Evolutions, as had Blaziken thanks to speed boost a generation before and also getting a Mega Evolution. And Fernade's mixed attacking stats higher speed and huge move pool made it a stronger choice, and Emboar's reckless ability let it spam Flare Blitz and Wall Break even when not at full HP. Finally, Delphox had a higher speed and setup moves. Those jack of all trades stats left Typhlosion unable to really do anything but rely on Eruption, which isn't a hugely game-changing gimmick to have. It is already tough enough as it is out here for a fire type, and Typhlosion was no exception. It stayed and rarely used. Oh, and before we end, in VGC though, Typhlosion could potentially wreak havoc with Sun setup from teammates, which made its Eruption Mount St. Helens level powerful. But there were so many things to prevent that. Fake Out, Protect, Brave Bird spam from Talonflame, really anything could upset that strategy. The only success we ever saw with it was from the ever surprising Ashton Cox, who did take a Sun team featuring Mega Charizard Y and Typhlosion to 4th at the Florida Regionals in 2015. But unfortunately, that's all the notable results we could find. So yeah, that's sometimes out here for Fire Badger. And that's it. So how good was Typhlosion actually? I'm not gonna sugarcoat this, not great. It edged right at the border of relevance its first 2 generations, but the introduction of Stealth Rock and gradual power creep let it fade pretty completely. We talk so frequently about this, but the jack of all trades role is rarely the route that leads to great success, at least in Pokemon. There are 6 members of your team after all, so you're not lacking in routes for specialization. At this point, Typhlosion stats really don't seem like they can stack up to much, so without some crazy ability or moves, or the resurgence of Mega Evolutions, it's doubtful we'll ever see it come back. And maybe at some point it can at least not be arguably the worst fire starter though, since it pretty much has never been since it was introduced. Though you can maybe argue Incineroar and Delphox, but sorry Typhlosion, stay in your adorable form. And honestly, saying all this pains me because I actually do like Typhlosion quite a bit. Thank you so much for watching, guys. As always, if you liked the video and want to see more, be sure to subscribe to FalseSwipeGaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And of course, as I always say, comment on what Pokemon.
Well, yep, that was that. So, yeah. It was rough for him. No, but besides that, I'll still pick him. Not for competitive, though, just for, like, my regular teams or whatever. But I know he has a history for him, so, I mean, at least they'll take it from there. So, it's nice to see. But history Typhlosion, oh my god, it looks so amazing. I loved how it looked. It's awesome. Fire Ghost Boy, yes. Yeah. And yeah, I'll see. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys next time, man. Peace.